Welcome in to a delayed episode of Building the Pride. I am your host, Drew, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Oh man, I'm doing all right, Drew. It's just a million things going on all at once. But such is life. At least I'm not bored. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing good. I have a 4-day weekend this
Nice.
week, which is nice in the sense that I don't have to go work, but also in the sense that I have no idea how all this stuff at my buddy's house works.
Right on.
Turning the volume up. I can't hear myself in my own ears. So like these
I can
these
hear you
aren't
fine.
well, that's good. These aren't working for me. So and then we had a miscommunication. I thought I was going to have like 30 minutes to troubleshoot this for today, which didn't work. Where's the audio input, right? I'm sure we'll get it figured out at some point, probably for next week.
Right.
So but so how's the house in Florida?
It's coming along. We are nowhere near close to being ready and done. Like our goal was by the time we leave, which we're planning on leaving Saturday, being back up in Michigan on Sunday. The goal was everything's done, everything's painted, things are in, everything's built, touched up, whatever, and we're able to like put it on the market to rent out by the time we leave. 0% chance that's going to happen. It's a lot of things like we found we replaced the appliances, and so we sold off all the existing ones for pretty cheap, and we're getting the new ones in, and like the fridge is 34 inches wide. There are two entry points into the kitchen. One is 31 inches wide. The other one is 34 inches wide, which is all I need if I pull off all the molding around the floor in that entry area. So just those kind of things. I did not think that, like, how the hell am I going to get this in here? I don't want to pull all that molding off. I'm not going to find that same kind of molding anymore. And God knows I will break it. And it's too heavy to lift up over the half inch on either side. Right? So like, how do I get this stupid fridge into the actual kitchen? First world problems. Oh my gosh, my fridge, my thing that keeps my food for a long time and cold and healthy and clean water. Oh, so but yeah, it's fun. I mean, we've painted basically every room in the house. We have not painted the kitchen yet. That's probably gonna happen tomorrow night. But a lot of stuff going on. And even better, the plan is to drive home this weekend, but my car decided about 2 days ago to start making a funny noise. The check engine light comes on, and now it barely turns over and starts when I try to start it up. So I now have to find a place. I'm used to like Bell Tires right around the corner, and that's my go-to. I have no idea where to take my vehicle, and that they're going to be closed on Friday. So I've got tomorrow and Thursday to find a place, get it in, hopefully not have to order anything so I can actually have it fixed and ready to be roadworthy for this weekend all the way back. So it's a million things at once, Drew.
Just rent a car, man. Just rent a
I
car.
could leave it here for now and then ride back with Andrea because her vehicle's down here as well. She had to leave her vehicle down when we flew back up when her father-in-law died. So we've got two vehicles down here. So I could ride up with her and then fly down for when we come to finish the rest of the stuff. But I'm not sure the tools that I need to bring will be allowed on an airplane. So we'll probably have to drive down for that trip. I don't know. But that's not. We're not here to talk about me complaining about what I got going on here. We're here to talk about the Lions. Before we start talking about Lions, what's going around in the NHL or the NFL? Because it's summertime and there's just not much. What have you found?
Well, there was a trade between the Dolphins and the Steelers. The Steelers get Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and I believe like a 7th-round pick 2 years from now. And then the Dolphins get Minkah Fitzpatrick, who used to play for them, and like a mid-round pick, which I believe is like a 5th-round pick next year. And it's your rare like player for player type of trade, but I just absolutely hate this for the Dolphins. I don't understand it at all. You're trading for a player in Minkah Fitzpatrick who, after his rookie contract was up, asked to be released or like demanded his way out, and they ended up getting rid of him. I don't remember if they traded him, which I think they did, to the Steelers. I don't remember him hitting the free agent market, which would be crazy that a player as good as he was after his rookie deal would be allowed to hit the open market and Miami not get anything back from him. Right. I am not a huge Minkah Fitzpatrick fan. I think that he's soft, not willing to hit, at least maybe at this stage of his career. And like, I think that Pittsburgh got the better player. And I guess this is just a salary shedding move for the Dolphins, who then followed up this move by trading for he was a tight end that retired. He plays for the Giants, or last played for the Giants. Darren Waller, that's who it is. So there's a lot I want to talk. There's a lot I could talk about this trade, because Pittsburgh has 2 tight ends, Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth, who are good tight ends. They're good players. Yeah. Pittsburgh, as a team, invested quality draft picks in those players. But they hired Arthur Smith to be their offensive coordinator, and Arthur Smith wants Jonnu Smith on the team. So now they have 3 tight ends. I am virtually certain, like, if I started a fantasy football team this year, I would have Jonnu Smith on the team, because you don't trade for a guy at this point in the season just because it's like he'd be nice depth. Like, yeah. I think that they're planning to utilize him prominently. Huh?
Like an idea, like over the summer, like this probably wasn't their plan, would it be?
Well, they have been, like, Pittsburgh has been rumored to be trying to trade for Jonnu Smith for weeks and or months. So this has been hanging out there. And then I think what ended up happening was they were like, hey, let's combine Jonnu Smith in with Jalen Ramsey and see if we can get all the players that don't want to be in Miami. And we'll make them come up here to Pittsburgh. And so now Pittsburgh has Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and Joey Porter Jr. is their 3 primary corners. So that seems like one too many corners, unless you're going to play like Ramsey in the slot, which he might be really good at. I mean, as a nickelback, free safety, rover.
On the back half of his career, I mean, he's not old, but like from a cornerback perspective, he's not young, so he's probably maybe lost his step. So maybe the slot is the best spot for him right now.
It's entirely possible. I mean, like, having him around the line. I mean, like, I want guys like Brian Branch to be around the line of scrimmage for Detroit. And he's certainly not the same player as Jalen Ramsey, like whether it's age or quality of players. Like, there's been a time where Jalen Ramsey was the best cornerback in the NFL for years. So, yeah. I love Brian Branch. he's one of the best safeties in the NFL, but like, I'm not sure how to compare those two people at this point. I don't know. I've heard there's a rumor floating around that Miami is trying to accumulate 2027 draft picks. I don't know why. My assumption would be it's something to do with resetting their roster, like what will
Like an
Tyreek
Arch
Hill
Manning
be.
thing, or is Arch coming out in 26?
Well, so I mean, that's another big topic. I mean, like if Texas, there's a reality here where he's in next year's draft, and that reality would look something, in my opinion, like Texas wins the national championship. They're probably going to be the number one rated team in the country to open the season. And if he leads them on like a Heisman winning campaign that culminates in a national championship, how is he not the number one pick in the draft?
Right.
You're coming off all the accolades in college as a member of that family to a team that at the top of the draft that's going to need a quarterback. I don't know how you wouldn't be the number one pick. I think more likely he's going to have a season just shy of that if I had to bet money on it. And he probably would be the number one overall pick anyways. But will that be enough to get him to come out of Texas? I don't know. I mean, he might just want to be the quarterback of Texas and enjoys being at the university or wants to finish his education or has a girlfriend that he doesn't want to immediately like leave or uproot, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, even if he was the highest earning NIL college football player in the country, which there's a real chance he could be, I think the top NIL earners only make money comparable to like the top 5 overall picks, in the draft. And that's on a year, like for a year, like
Right.
there's nothing that says, I don't think there's anything that says that like they get paid $7-8 million a year by their college. I don't know how it works because it's the Wild West, but you would make comparable money, escalating money in the NFL, to begin your pro career, and then you would be 1 year closer to your second contract where you're going to make so much more money than what NIL could ever pay you.
Yeah.
That it just seems like you would want to get started on that. I don't know. So
there's two things that I wanted to hit on real quick before we get into a little bit more deep football news. Number one, since we are a Detroit Lions podcast, Detroit sports, condolences to Alex Delvecchio's family. Alex Delvecchio, Hall of Fame Detroit Red Wings. His numbers retired. His jersey's hanging up in Little Caesars Arena. Hall of Famer. He passed away today, so it's a real bummer for the Detroit sports community. So RIP, Alex Delvecchio. This is and on the celebratory side, Happy Bobby Bonilla Day.
yeah.
Every July 1st since 2011. It's already been 14 years. Bonilla has collected $1.193 million from the Mets. And this will continue until 2035.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting contracts in sports history. He's gonna collect. He also collects $500,000 today from the Cincinnati Reds. I believe it's the Cincinnati Reds. Maybe it's somebody else. Washington Nationals. I don't know, but he collects money. He collects about half his famous check in deferral payments from another MLB team. So he collected a cool almost $1.7 million today, and he collects the $500,000 deferral through 2028. So he's got 3 more years of that money coming in, and then just another 7 off of one of the most interesting contracts ever signed. And it's just, he decided he would take this amount of money over like 25 or 35 years or something crazy. And
Yes,
the Mets were like
2011, so 25 years.
Yeah, it's just
nuts.
It's just a crazy. Now, congratulations to Bobby. I mean, he retired, I don't think that long after he signed that deal.
Like 3 years or something.
Yeah. Like, good job, Bobby. I mean, I would be like, oh, look at these idiots. I got them. You know, like, I'm out of here. I'm going to
kids, right?
Yeah, I'm going to Boca Raton. You know, I'm going to put my feet in the sand and have a daiquiri or something, you know, like, it just seems great for him. Good job, Bobby. We should all aspire to such levels.
So there were 2 other non-football things I want to talk about, but they do relate in a way to what we do talk about, and that is the NFL draft. So this is a video. So the NHL draft was this past weekend, and I'm curious. I don't know if you saw this. I sent it to you in Facebook Messenger. I'm not sure if you actually watched this. But I'll play it. Let's see. I will add some audio. I'll probably have to remove and re-add it. Give me just a second here.
So while we're waiting, nothing that you've ever sent me in Facebook Messenger has worked when I've clicked on it. Not one thing. Not one link. Not one video. I hate it. I hate Facebook Messenger. I mean, I use it, but
yeah, I'm the same. To be honest. All right. So share audio. So theoretically, y'all should be able to hear this as well now. So this is the NHL draft. It does it a little bit differently than the NFL. It appears that the player does not know they're getting drafted until the name's called. They didn't get a call from the GM or anything like that. Just kind of set up what we're going to watch here. Gary Bettman, the commissioner, is going to go up there. He's going to announce Dave Coulier, the actor. He's a huge Detroit sports fan. He actually plays rec hockey, so a huge Red Wings fan. He was actually at some of the Stanley Cup parties with the team when they won the Stanley Cup. So like big into the scene. So he comes out and he announces the pick, right? I know that's not something that is your favorite thing, is when you have other people, fans and whatnot, announce picks. But he announces the pick. They bring the kid on stage. And then they immediately, do some quick pictures, and they immediately go to like a video wall where he gets to talk to the GM and coach for the first time. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are.
Dave Coulier is live in Detroit. Wear number 13 for the Red Wings. Most notably, the magician from the Everett Silvertips.
Some call him the draft's most fiercest competitor, Megan.
He's a high involvement player, and I will say, as a Canadian, it's such a deep.
He wasn't on the phone with the GM beforehand.
Red Wings not pick a suite.
I know.
So they went for
Junior this season in Everett, of course. What I also love about
huge drought.
And a proud
on stage,
like
gets
Detroit,
pictures with the
a guy
commissioner,
like this, I
all
think,
that kind
adds
of
some
stuff.
competitiveness with the skill. To compliment
I'm actually
Lucas
excited
Raymond
for this pick too, though. I think it's going to be really good for the Wings.
it sounds like he'll be good when he is a big boy.
Covering for a partially torn Achilles. He will be, as you guys said, he can score. And this
Puts the jersey on, all that kind of stuff.
Trading Vlad Tarasenko with
Pictures.
and Nygaard
Then he gets
last
walked
year.
over to like a video wall. He gets to talk to Steve Yzerman, right, the GM, and Chris Draper, who's director of scouting.
Sure.
And so they get to do this like interview live for the first time.
Hey, Carter, Steve Yzerman and Chris Draper here. As you know, I hope you remember, we got to meet you in Buffalo there a few weeks ago. Enjoyed our time together, and we're really looking forward to spending a lot of time together in the future. Thrilled to have you in our organization. Obviously, we love you as a hockey player, and we're very, very excited to have you in the organization with us as we move forward.
Oh, thank you, guys. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Speechless. I don't know. Thank you.
Carter, did you have any sense when you were going through this process this could be the pick?
No, I was just like, came into the meeting with them, obviously just trying to be myself, trying to prove something to them. And, obviously they took me, and pretty grateful for that opportunity. So thank you guys.
Steve, you've always had.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. We don't have to watch the whole interview. Totally different look and feel with this than what the NFL does. Because they, you don't get, because we talked about that during draft night where they're like, they're on the phone. You don't get this like big, oh my God, it was me. You don't get the surprise, and you don't get that like that kind of emotion with the NFL draft. At least not on camera. Obviously, you get to see them talking like this and whatnot. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. What are your thoughts? Like, is the NHL doing it right? Would you like to see the NFL draft do something similar to this?
To be honest, if Goodell just went up there and just announced who the players were and what teams picked them, I'd be like, cool. To me, all of this is just extra. Like when it comes to the NFL draft, I don't care what kind of suits the kids are wearing. I care who drafts them or whether or not they got traded, that kind of stuff. This is neat. I like it. I will say, I don't know why the NFL has the GM call the players like before they're announced. I don't know what that's about, but that's the way that it's been lately, at least. And like, I don't take issue with it. This is good too. I'm glad that the NHL is doing something different than the NFL. But like, to me, the only thing I care about when it comes to like how a professional sports league puts together their draft of amateur players is if the way that the draft is constructed helps create parity in the sports league that has adopted it. So football does it best. I don't know how hockey does it. Basketball does it worst. So and I think that the fact that the format in the NFL has been, they figured it out. Like in the NFL, they have figured out how to make that event into a spectacle. If the NFL were to copy what you just showed us, I don't know that it's really any different from my point of view or from a fan's point of view of just seeing the kid on the phone, like with the GM. So like what I'm thinking of is like Isaac Tesla when he got the call from Brad and he said, or he was talking to the owner. Yeah. And Sheila. And he said, "Oh, hi, Mrs. Ford," and then his like family in the room reacted. That moment is on par with the moment that you showed us here. I think there's probably like, if you wanted to do like the first round like this, that would be fine. But I don't think that there's a way to keep, the NFL has no interest in keeping things a secret. So I don't think they would adopt this model. But I like that hockey came up with it, and they should take any opportunity to differentiate themselves in a positive way from the NFL model if it helps them create more buzz for their sport, because that's what all sports should be trying to do when it comes to competing with the NFL. So I like it. I don't think it's for the NFL.
Yeah. That's fair. I was curious. It was like you said, it's unique and it's different. So I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool.
It is unique and different. I got to agree with you there.
And then the other thing that is, it's hockey related, but it's also related to what we talk about here, the NHL and the NHLPA CBA extension, and they've changed a few things here. I'm going to zoom in here. So these are some of the details of their updated CBA. So it's an 84-game regular season. I believe right now it's 82.
Yep.
the contracts are limited to 6 years for free agents and 7 years for players re-signing with a team.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any limitations in the NFL.
I
It
don't believe
tends
that.
to be 4 or 5 years, but Mahomes did what, a 10-year deal? So I don't know.
So let's talk about these point by point a little bit, because like in there's a lot of deferred money in baseball.
Yep.
And I have no problem with deferred money. Like, I guess the example in the NFL that I would point to is the way that Kirby Joseph's contract is structured. Like, he gets paid not much more than he was getting paid at the end of his rookie deal for the next 4 years during the year. But then the first year, his first void year, he gets $36 million, which is more equal to or more than what he made the 4 years prior to that on the extension. So like, if that's not deferred money, I have no idea what deferred money is then, so like,
right.
So the NFL's salary cap allows for like de facto deferred money. And I think that we will see teams starting to try and exploit that the way that we have seen teams like try and exploit void years, when it comes to just like, the team would rather have $1 in its pocket today than it would 4 years from now. Right. Yeah. And the player, if they can defer that money, they're ensuring more of their future. Like the most famous version of this idea is Shohei Ohtani for the Dodgers, who was going to make next to nothing while he's playing baseball and an absolute metric ton when he decides to stop playing, because his deal is so backloaded that he's Bobby Bonilla is going to sit down and cry into his soup when he sees the deferred money that Shohei Ohtani is going to get.
He's got extra zeros.
Right. But like, I think it's interesting here that it's a shorter deal for free agents and longer for players re-signing with their teams. Basketball has something similar where you can offer a player that you drafted more money than a player that you can sign in free agency. And that's supposed to entice people to try and stay with homegrown small market teams like Milwaukee or San Antonio, in order to help create parity. The NFL solves this problem because they set their draft up in a smart way. Like, the worst teams get the best picks. And like, you have
no lottery to screw you over, right?
Right. And so like in the NBA, like, tanking is a more present thing than in the NFL. Like, you can just sit down Luka Doncic for the last 2 games of the season, and you can just basically lie about why you do that. Like, oh, he's got a knee injury, or his hand hurts, or whatever. Like, yeah, he just played 82 games, like,
right.
Like hockey. Find me a hockey player that's not going to be hurt the 84th game of the season, right? Like, so I think that the NFL, so like this thing about like an extra year if you re-sign with a team, that's an effort to create parity by keeping homegrown talent at home and not skittering off to a bigger market. Deferred money is an effort to get the money in the player's hands up front. So I would imagine that the NHLPA argued pretty hard for that. That seems like one of their, like, well, we want this type of.
Well, it's not allowed. So deferred salary is not allowed in contracts.
Right, which means that you can't backload deals, right? So like, my guess would be that the NHL Players Association wants the money to get into the players' hands faster, and like the NHL being such a physically demanding sport and them making the absolute least amount of money through the 4 major sports leagues, it would make sense, I would think, that they would want that money up front than to say like deferring it as like a baseball or basketball player might.
I will say though that NHL contracts are fully guaranteed. You sign a 4-year deal, you will get paid the entirety of it. There's none of this I'm going to cut you and get cap relief crap, or you're not going to make, like, when you sign the deal, that's the money. When you see it in the NFL, you're like, okay, well, what's the guarantee? Like, that's the only part that you know you're going to get. The big number, the 450 million, okay, but it's only 280 is guaranteed. He's probably making 280, right? That's not the case in the NHL. So I'm curious if that's more of a trying to keep the teams, and there's a hard salary cap similar to the NFL. So I'm not sure if that's trying to keep the teams honest, or if it's who fought for that when the players, or the owners. The next one, I'm not really sure. Signing rights to draft picks moving from across leagues. So I don't know if there's some sort of like the ECHL and the IHL and all the sub the
farm systems. Yeah,
the farm systems. I don't know if there are differences between those. There must be, because that's the only thing I can think of. Or it's talking about across leagues when it comes to the Swedish Elite League and the Russian Federation League, and those kinds of things. I'm not sure what leagues they're referring to and what those rights. What does that even mean? I'm just not as deep into the NHL contractual obligations as I am in the NFL, but I found that was interesting.
Well, the NHL is certainly a more international game than the other three major U.S. sports leagues. I will say the NBA is becoming much more international, and the NFL is trying to do it. Like, they want to have games in Europe, Brazil, Mexico. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to expand that slate of viewing experiences. And they also have the international players program. So if you are, like every year, like 15 guys from Ireland go through like a kicking camp to see if they can be NFL place kickers or punters. And like most famously, Jordan Mailata from the Philadelphia Eagles was from the international players program. And this year we have Ahmed Hassanein, who went to Boise State, but I believe did Tariq Skubal just get extended, Danny?
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was literally typing in the chat like, did he?
Hang on.
While you look at that, I did find it a little bit funny that they probably should have had this, already, but they did codify every team gets a full-time emergency backup goalie. And what typically happens is most teams carry two goalies, right? You got your starter, you got your backup. If they both get hurt, they literally have someone from the crowd come in and play. There's usually somebody identified. And most famously, here's the crazy thing though. It's per arena, right? So like, you might be a visiting team, have both of your guys go down, and that emergency backup is actually the opposing team's, I don't know, whatever, beer league thing. And so your opponent is playing in crazy stuff. So, but there was just this past year, there was a emergency backup goaltender that came in relief of injured players, won the game. And it was super embarrassing to the team that couldn't beat a beer league goaltender, right? So they're like, we can't have this. So they actually codified every team gets a full-time emergency backup goalie.
Probably a good idea. Like, there's no equivalent to a goalie in the other three sports, right? Like,
right. Quarterback is the closest thing we get. The most important, kingpin of the.
And we have seen what quarterback injuries will do in the playoffs to a team, like most famously with the 49ers a couple of years ago when Purdy had a UCL tear and they had two other quarterbacks that were hurt and they literally needed a fourth guy, and the roster just doesn't allow for it. And like, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. Like, you should be able to, the day of, like, sign a guy and get him in a jersey just to have the ability to play the game correctly out there, So otherwise, like,
allowing that third quarterback to not take a game day roster spot, but be available as essentially a third string without having to take up a game day roster spot, similar to this emergency backup the NFL has. I think this year is the first year of that, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so Brian mentioned, like, I think the NFL should mandate 3 quarterbacks in the roster, even if one's just emergency. Especially if you make it not count against the cap and not count against your game day roster count, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with, like, that being, like, I don't know how teams would exploit that, but, like, having, whoever's third on your, effectively what would be a practice squad QB, like, in a locker room right now, be eligible for gameplay, not count against the roster, is fine with me. I mean, like, those guys make nothing.
Yeah.
Just to have someone who's competent, who, like, understands, like, oh, this is the play call, I have to do this in this situation. They may not be able to zip the ball 40 yards down the field, on an out route, but, like, they can manage the game, like,
they can hand it off and throw the short, quick outs, right?
Yeah.
The last 2 things in here I thought were interesting. Teams cannot mandate player dress code when arriving or departing games. Presumably, the players argued for that. I don't know if there was a lot of very grumpy coaches like, you got to be in a tuxedo, or, like, I don't know if they were. I don't know how that came about, but I thought that was a little bit interesting. But the one that I find most interesting, and it was a huge deal, playoff game rosters must be cap compliant. And what that means is,
biggest one.
It's huge because there were a couple teams, Tampa Bay Lightning being the biggest ones in the recent memory. I think Florida's been that way. Is if you are injured, your contract doesn't count against the cap during the regular season, right? So if the cap's $100 million and you're exactly at the cap, but your $20 million guy goes down, when he's on injured reserve, you have $20 million of cap available, right? So you can go out and get a replacement, fill that up. Cool, you're still under the cap, even though technically you're over because your guy's on injured reserve. Once you get to the playoffs, there is no cap in the past. So that injured guy can come back and now you're essentially at $120 million of player value because there was no cap in the playoffs. So what was happening is you would get some of the higher end guys get hurt on a really good team and go, you know what? We're not going to rush you back. We're going to bring somebody else in and effectively give ourselves a bigger cap and let you just take the last couple games off. Then you come back in the playoffs, miraculously healed, and now you've got like a bigger, better, more expensive roster because there was no cap. So they finally said, all right, your playoff game rosters must be cap compliant. So there's no getting around the whole if you're on injured reserve, you don't count against us kind of thing.
You can't
so
load
I think
up.
it's a big deal. Yeah. So remember to like the stream. We regularly have more people on the stream than hit the like button. Yeah, good call, Brian. Appreciate that. So those are the non-football. Yeah. Those were the non-football yet football adjacent topics. The next football one I want to talk about was the coaching hot seat chart. Obviously, it's just somebody's thing. I found this hilarious. Hell itself could open up along with 3 or more 0-17 seasons, and you could literally shoot the entire roster and be supplied a new one the next day. Andy Reid is untouchable, is what they're saying. But all that said, frozen solid, the locked in, no hot seat at all. The Rams the Eagles and the Vikings, surprisingly, like I'm not exactly sure why Campbell and Harbaugh are not in there. Probably the other Harbaugh. I'm not exactly sure about the others. They're a little bit newer, but like I feel like those guys should be in that frozen solid. There's no warmth on their seat for John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell.
Kate, can you make it bigger?
I can.
Because I can't read what's next to the team names.
Oh, they're kind of funny. Put it in the fridge. Lukewarm at worst. San Francisco, Seattle, Buffalo. New team, bad team. New coach, big questions. Essentially starting out warm.
So why isn't
Mild
Chicago with
stuff.
the Jets?
What's that?
Why does Chicago have one foot in the fridge, and Aaron Glenn in New York has? So who put this together?
I don't recall where I found it, to be honest. It's opinion either way, right? So I'm not exactly sure who it was.
There are educated opinions. Let's just talk about some of these teams.
Yeah.
The Giants
and the descriptions, because mild Taco Bell sauce is kind of funny.
I don't eat at Taco Bell, so I don't get it. But the Giants front office and coaching staff has been rumored to be on the hot seat 4 years. That makes a ton of sense. I don't know why Jonathan Gannon in Arizona would be on the hot seat. Like, that team
haven't they finished fourth in their division for like 2 or 3 years in a row?
Did they finish fourth last year?
I think they finished behind San Francisco, didn't they?
I don't think so. I think they were around a 500 team.
While we review, I'll take a peek, because I do not recall.
First of all, like, I think some of these teams, Atlanta is making a quarterback change, right? The Indianapolis,
Arizona was 8-9, San Francisco at 6-11.
Yeah, I mean, like 8-9 is a 500 roster in the NFL. What's up, Dr. Detroit?
That could be.
So, like, I don't know. I think that I wouldn't put Jonathan Gannon on the hot seat. That doesn't make sense.
At least not on the scalding lava hot. Like maybe mild Taco Bell sauce hot. Like starting to be warm.
Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. I just don't know what I mean, if you put Jesus Christ come back down to earth as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, I don't know that he does any better than Kevin Stefanski, and that dude could walk on water. You know, like, I just don't know what anybody could have done. I know someone will hire Kevin Stefanski 5 minutes after Cleveland fires him. Atlanta seems a little bit weird to me. They just made a QB change, so I guess it depends on how Michael Penix does. I think that, once again, like, I think Indianapolis is probably a quarterback away from being a team that not a lot of people want to play. So, I mean, I don't know. Anthony Richardson has been hurt and a kid, and then they signed Daniel Jones. So was it the situation in New York that made Daniel Jones play the way that he did? Or is that just who he is? I don't know. I guess we'll figure out this year. Mike
kind of blew me away. Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin. There should be a category called Carbonite.
Yeah, that's the one right here, right? Hell itself could open up, and he's not going anywhere, right? I feel like he and Andy Reid are about as I'm there until I don't want to be here kind of guy.
Yeah, he is like the longest tenured coach in the NFL. Like, he'd have to punch a baby in the face
on camera.
Yeah, in order to, like, have people not like him in Pittsburgh. Like, he's safe as anybody else. Miami and Cincinnati are interesting choices because these were two quote unquote up and coming young coaches who got the teams better. You know, like, they have two young quarterbacks who really helped that. And like, I don't think that Tua Tagovailoa is in Joe Burrow's classification, but they built the team to do what Tua is good at.
Yeah.
And that improved the team from terrible to mediocre. But both of these teams are kind of like, okay, we've been in the same area now for a while, the last couple of seasons. Can we, quote unquote, get over the hump? What does that look like for our respective teams? If not, they could be let go. Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay, I feel like that would just be firing someone to just, quote unquote, make a change. So I don't know that I like that too much. Tennessee has Vrabel. Like, you might want to put him in carbonite too, because like he's one of the biggest coaching hires in recent memory, and he went to the Titans, right? Am I? Yeah. Or is Vrabel in New England? He was in Tennessee.
Yeah, he was in Tennessee. He's in New England now.
So I don't know who their coach is then. So yeah, okay, fine. It's Canales in. Vrabel got fired from the Titans. He's on the pass. Thanks, Danny. Figure out who Tennessee's coach is. Go. Dave Canales was with the Bucs, and then went to the Panthers after they had like a relatively extensive head coaching search because no one wants to work for that owner. So like, if you find a dude who's willing to just swallow whatever's coming down from the owner's box, then like you got to stick with that guy. If you're Carolina, because they have the worst owner in the NFL. Jacksonville is a revolving door. The New York Jets, Brian Callahan, thank you. The Jets just hasn't played one game under Aaron Glenn yet. Like, he is, even if he has a bad year, that's akin to like Detroit had 24 bad games under Campbell, and then shit turned around.
Yep.
You know, like, you have to allow for that. Like, New Orleans is, they can hire whomever they want. Like, the problem is not on the sideline; it's in the owner's box, like in the front office. Like, Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson are the problem with that team, and they're not going anywhere because she is loyal to him, and he's awful. And I don't understand why they decide to do it this way. We talked about Kyle Shanahan a little bit last week. Mike McDonald is brand new, and I would say the arrow is pointing up for the Seahawks, even though they made some pretty big moves this offseason. What do you want? What do you want the Bills head coach to do? Like, he's in a conference with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, like, that's the problem with a lot of teams. It's the same problem that a lot of teams had in the Brady and Manning era, is that they were in a conference with two behemoths, you know?
Well, so like, not just a conference with the behemoths, but like, he's got Joe Burrow to deal with. He's got Lamar Jackson to deal with. He's got Patrick Mahomes to deal with. He's got Justin Herbert to deal with. And Bo Nix doesn't look too bad either over in Denver, right? And like, it's not every one of those guys can win, right? Only one of those guys are getting through, and maybe even one of those that are not those guys. But like, more than likely, fight one of those five. But like, only one can do that. So,
is it still Mike McCarthy it's not, right? It's Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas. So like, newish head coach. I don't remember who the Texans head coach is.
Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah. Green Bay's coach, I think, is from that McVay tree, right?
Yeah. Oh my God! I think it was Mike McDonald, but I don't think that's right.
No, that's Miami.
Matt LaFleur.
LaFleur, yeah, someone else, yeah.
Yep.
And I don't remember who Houston's coach is, but like, they're all in the same box as far as I'm concerned. Like, a lot of these teams are, you're I mean, there's like a third of the league changes their head coaches every season.
D'Amico Ryan, by the way.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's not going anywhere. I mean,
yeah, that's why lukewarm at worst, right? Like these are the guys that are like, something really major has to happen before they actually get on the hot seat. The closer we get to hell itself opening, the more likely you are going to, not on the hot seat. So,
I'm shocked that the Vikings are in a like category above the Lions.
He did just win Coach of the Year, but I agree in that I think both of these teams should be down in this frozen solid.
Yeah,
I don't anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
I think I would make this list different. Like I think there's a category that should be like you're a first or second year head coach, or you have a first or second year quarterback. Your job status is determined by one of those two things, right? Like, and then if you're a legend, or if you're a legend like Andy Reid is, and him and Mike Tomlin might be the last quote unquote coaching legends in the NFL. Like, you should just be hired until you want to stop. And then there's like, but like the team that wins the Super Bowl, unless you're the Chiefs, has, I mean, let go their head coach, it seems like pretty regularly, not that long after winning the Super Bowl. So like winning a Super Bowl, and this is the point I'm getting to, I suppose, doesn't guarantee you 3 more years of being a head coach for that team. It might not guarantee you 2 years, like it's what you're supposed to do, but I don't know that it buys you any insurance. You have to keep winning, at these levels. So, I mean, like, I guess that's what it really comes down to is like, have you proven you can't win? Are we hopeful that you can win? Have you proven that you can win, but you haven't won the big one? And like, have you proven that you can win the big one? Like, those are the 4 categories that I really believe like head coaches and by default like front offices fall into in the NFL. And like, that's why I'm constantly saying, like, if you're going to fire your GM, your head coach, or cut your starting quarterback, you need to get rid of the other 2 guys. All 3 of those guys go out together, and the brand new 3 of those guys come in together. And if you're not doing that, you're just poisoning the tree the other 2 are on. Because so rarely is it like, oh, we've got the head coach and the quarterback, but now we just need the GM. What? Like, oh, we've got the GM and the quarterback, now we just need the head coach. Like, really? Like, if you couldn't find, I mean, the nice thing about like the Lions situation is that Sheila hired, the GM, who then hired the head coach, who then traded for a quarterback that he knew. And like, you and I have talked about Jared Goff 1,000 times. Like, I'm not in love with him, but he's improved his play since he's been in Detroit.
Yep.
And they've maximized. And
he's our quarterback, whether we like it or not. So we got to root for him, right?
Right. So like, and they have maximized his play, which is their job.
Yep.
And they have built the team up around him, which is their job. And I think that Sheila got it right with her hire, but like, that's the number one problem that like all organizations, not just sports organizations, face is, did you hire the right people for the right roles? So as for the Detroit Lions, there's not much going on. Somebody at work asked me when we were going to re-sign Zadarius Smith. I don't know. Like, he's a vet now. Like, he seems like he's enjoying life away from the football field just for like this brief moment. I don't know. I think that he probably comes back closer to the preseason. And I think that he will be on the week 1 roster. I have no idea what it would look like to sign for him, but I think they want to keep as many people on this inflated roster as they possibly can to evaluate them before bringing back somebody that they already had a look at, got significant playing time, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So he's on the team as far as I'm concerned. He's just not listed on the roster yet, you know. But I think that he will be a contributor this season.
I mean, I think so. The signs point to we're just waiting. He wants to come to play in Detroit. We're going to probably want some depth. I'm not sure if we will wait until after the preseason and all of those kind of, like that time frame. And weeding this guy out. Let's bring Zadarius back in because we know what we've got in him if we want him. So part of me just wonders, are they just waiting to figure out what we've got before we say, all right, yep, you're right. You're going to be better than these other guys that we've got for depth.
Yeah. So one thing I kind of want to do for next week is to Pride of Detroit is putting together contract projections for free agents, pending free agents, and Jahmyr Gibbs and Jamison Williams, that kind of thing. And I kind of like to take those numbers and like have a conversation about like this player at this price, what do you do? I think that would be fun. I've been having too much fun with college football recruiting right now to put much thought into mock drafts. And vets don't want to do camp. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. He knows his body at this point. So like he knows how much he needs to do for how long in order to get in like game shape. So I'll probably ramp up the mock drafting a little bit as we get closer to the season or like when we trim the roster. But like I think that it's pretty obvious the two biggest needs on the team are edge and center. So, and if it's edge and center and you have Aiden Hutchinson on the team and it's a center, like I think you're doing okay, you know.
I mean, isn't Tate Rutledge going to play center?
I don't think
Isn't
so.
That what I saw?
I haven't seen anything that has said that the Lions have named a starter at center.
Yeah,
I know
they haven't named anything, but I think he's been playing during OTAs and stuff like that. After Ragnow announced it, I thought I read that he was taking first team snaps at center.
Yeah, and that's fine because I think that they just want to get a look at everybody that could potentially play center. But like if you're telling me that you're going to have a rookie who is going to switch positions, play center on this team when you have Graham Glasgow, who has played center, has been the primary center, you know, when Frank wasn't in, and who knows all the calls on the offense because he's been on the roster for X number of years, I will be fucking shocked if Graham Glasgow is not the week one starting center. Even Frank Ragnow, as a rookie, didn't play center. He played guard. Hey, LM. You know, like, so even like Ragnow, who I think he played 7 seasons, he only played 6 of them at center, you know. So I just don't think it's a rookie position switch. You know,
yeah.
They just wanted to get, I mean, they do this all the time, like with, it doesn't matter what position group or it is, they want cross training at so many different positions. Yeah, he might be, you know, like that might be, I mean, if you like, in my opinion, drafting a guard in the second round the way that they did is like drafting a wide receiver in the first round. Like you're drafting a starter for that position at that pick, right? Like that's what that level of pick signifies, is that they're drafting a starter, and like he's played right guard his whole career at Georgia. And you're going, I mean, like this situation seems like there's undue panic about the fact that Frank Ragnow is no longer on the team. And it's a loss for sure. But like, I don't think that it's like, well, I mean, Miles Frazier in the first week of the preseason got some snaps at center. Like, I don't think that will mean anything. I think it's like tiny experiments, or like, I think Miles Frazier is probably the more likely of the two players between Tate Ratledge and Miles Frazier to end up the starting center of the Detroit Lions, because like you can't just keep mixing and matching interior offensive linemen when it goes down. Like, yeah, they like having competent backups, but they just invested a hell of a lot of draft capital. I mean, like, if you start Mahogany and Ratledge and Glasgow's your center, you drafted Miles Frazier to be a backup. You're drafting for backups.
Right.
Like,
and even then, to that point is if he does start at guard, he may, just like Ragnow, move over into center after a year of Glasgow.
So like he could, sure, but like, and if they follow the same kind of like career pattern that Frank Ragnow went through, then like somebody's going to have to play center, at some point the year after this upcoming season. Like, and if that's Tate Ratledge, then like, I just think that's a waste to move him to center. Like, just draft a center, and like, somebody's going to have to play, I guess, in the interim, unless you sign a vet, which veterans make it to the free agency market. Like, you're probably not going to get like top of the money. I mean, like, if they knew that Frank Ragnow was going to retire, why not sign Drew Dahlman as opposed to letting the Bears sign him? That kind of thing. Like, I don't understand. Like, Tate Ratledge is a good guard. You should play him at guard. Like, it's not a complex. I mean, that just seems so straightforward and makes so much sense to me. This just feels like the whole situation is being overcomplicated when it doesn't seem all that complicated. I mean, it's a center position. Like, the Lions will probably not have a top 5 center for the next decade. I would be surprised.
Unless somebody happens to magically develop into that. Like, no one thought Ragnow was going to be a potential Hall of Fame center either, right?
No, but I mean, if you invest the 20th overall pick or whatever he was into the position, like, you're at least saying, like, we believe this guy can be.
Yeah. And he was replacing
Raiola, wasn't he?
Dominic Raiola, yeah. Yeah.
He was high in the grit index, but I mean, the grit index is also not like an infallible metric.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's good. The nice part about the interior offensive line is, at least from what I've seen with the Lions, pieces can be moved pretty easily without a ton of drop off. Definitely, obviously, people have their specialties. Like, I am definitely a better guard than center, but switching from guard to center for, at times, never seems to be that big of a drop. So it gives us a lot of flexibility with the types of dudes that we've been drafting the last couple of years.
I mean, except that, like, none of them have ever played center. So I mean, the one guy on the roster. So there's 2 guys on the roster that have played center, and that's Ram Glasgow and Kingsley Aguakun, who is our practice squad center, who they've been trying to develop. Last year, they brought in 2 other centers, and they had a practice camp battle to like figure out who was going to see if somebody could distinguish themselves as the primary backup to Frank Ragnow. And like, I don't think Kingsley Aguakun is the answer to like the long-term center plans, but like, that's another guy who's been in the locker room for 2 years who has learned the offense, the play calls, worked with Jared Goff to some extent.
Yeah.
And who is not switching positions. Like I would put Tate Ratledge right now at like third best option to be your starting. I mean, who's going to be the starting
guy when they go to him?
Yeah, just because they've done it, like if the Detroit Lions have winning the division goals, playoff goals, potentially winning the Super Bowl goals, I don't see how those are realized with a rookie out of position, never done it before with the team center, so like he could be great. I mean, I guess that's always just the counterpoint to everything is that like it could just work out. Like it could, they could play Tate Ratledge at center and it could just work out. Right. And he could be great at it. And like, okay, but like that's why I think that they're trying this stuff is that, yeah, but it's unlikely, right? So yeah. All pro votes are the only infallible metric. Hard to argue with that. Hard to argue with
Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
At least you didn't say Pro Bowl because it's probably that and passer rating are probably the two least valuable metrics that exist.
And we've talked about passer rating. I just don't understand like how anybody's like, oh, he had a perfect 100 passer rating. Neat. What does that mean? Like, I don't know how.
It's not even 100. It's 153.8. Like,
I know.
What?
Like, I just don't get it. Like, the scale means nothing. Like, it just, I mean, like, no one knows how to like, when people put up passer ratings, like in like sports columns or something like that. And it's like, oh, he had like a 97.6 passer rating. The fuck does that mean? I don't know what that means. That's a C+ if you're just doing the math. Like I just there's too much of, to Brian's point, fallible metrics that get floated around that like we can regurgitate them back, but like, no, I mean, if I always, anytime anybody brings up passer rating, like talking to me face to face, I was like, you tell me what passer rating means. Tell me why it's good.
It's not.
No one can. Right.
Oh, it's super easy. Everybody knows what what it is, and there's calculators out there. You can do all of this. It's just a couple metrics. Like for example, Goff went 18 for 18, no interceptions, no incompletions, and still didn't get a perfect passer rating because the ratio of touchdowns to passes was too low or something. So like you could literally have 34 passing attempts, 0 completions, or 0 yards, 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's like an 18 score. Yeah,
it's like a 39. But if you have 34 and you're like that's 17, but 2 interceptions, it's worse. Like you can literally throw every ball in the ground and have a better passer rating than going 500 and only 2 picks. I mean, I don't know. It is such a dumb metric that I just can't stand seeing it in any description of games. It means so little. But anywho, let's Goff need one more attempt for it to be perfect. If you count Arias, Ross touched on to him, it was perfect quarterback game for the team. Yeah.
Neat.
It's weird that like he had to have one more attempt. He had to be 1 for 1 more, right, to be actual perfect. Even though 18 for 18 seems pretty perfect to me. It's just dumb. I tell you.
There's only one statistic that really means anything, and that's wins. So
that is a team statistic, not a player statistic.
To be honest, like people keep saying like that's a quarterback stat or that's a team stat. It's all the fucking same as far as I'm concerned. Like if your quarterback doesn't play well, you're not going to get a win. So like
usually.
Well, I mean like yeah, usually. I mean like that's the consistency that goes into like figuring out how shit works, right? So like I mean, like, I don't care. I mean, I don't care if Joe Burrow is 31 for 35 for 800 yards and 14 touchdowns. You know,
if their defense gives up 15, is it his fault they lost? No.
Yeah, but like, I don't know why you would distinguish me like, oh, it matters that he played so well when they lost. Like, I don't. Well, so it doesn't matter.
It depends on what you're referring to. Like, if you're like, oh, is he a good quarterback? He's amazing. Does the team win? Not necessarily. Is it because of him? Absolutely not. So if you're like, they were just outside of playoffs this past year, but it wasn't. I mean, if he made the playoffs, he probably wins MVP. But because his defense was so bad, they couldn't win. No matter what he did, you could be, like you said, Jesus Christ himself. But if Satan is on your defense, giving up touchdowns left and right, like, it doesn't matter how good you are. Wins are not a personal stat. So you can't judge an individual player by wins.
Yeah, but all individual stat add up to like winning. Like you don't get winning by a bunch of terrible players having good stat. You know, like if a bunch of terrible players have good stats, you know, and you win, are they bad players? You know, and if you have a bunch of good players who can't win, are they bad players? You know, like ultimately you're going to be defined by winning and losing. And like,
I guess my question then to you is, why does Calvin Johnson, who went through an 0-16 season, not get the blame?
Because in the NFL, quarterbacks get blame. You know, like, no, because
that has nothing to do with it, right? Like,
it does, because, well, I mean, like, so, I mean, like to have the, I mean, this is like dancing around this conversation again, but like Matthew Stafford played a long time on bad teams and he racked up a bunch of like empty calorie, like have to throw the ball stats, right? Is Matthew Stafford a good quarterback? Yeah, he is. I mean, like the way that he throws the ball, the way that he processes information, the kind of attitude and work ethic that he brings, like all those things are non-quantifiable. But if you look at the performance on the field and what it added up to, it didn't add up to winning. And there can be 1,000 reasons for that. But like ultimately, like Matthew Stafford gets the blame for those teams because the position that he plays is so much more important than the position that Calvin Johnson plays. Like Calvin Johnson can go out and run perfect routes every single time. And if the quarterback never throws him the ball, it's not Calvin's fault.
Right.
You know, but he doesn't have an opportunity. The quarterback is the distributor of opportunity in an NFL game. So,
and I get that. This is one of those, like, I don't die on too many hills. This is one of those hills that I'm like, wins are a team stat. In the example I usually will go to is, you know, you hear like, oh, Stafford never won a playoff game in Detroit. That's 100% accurate.
Yep.
But he did throw for 380 yards and 4 touchdowns, and our defense gave up 6 touchdowns. He did everything that should have been able to win that game, but our defense was so bad it didn't matter. But yet now he couldn't win the game. I don't think that's fair.
But like I could argue, like your argument is he did enough to win it and the defense lost it. My argument, I could make the same argument on the other side of the fence. That was the defense did enough to win it, and Matt didn't do enough to put us over the top.
I'm sorry, giving up 6 touchdowns isn't enough to win it. But at the same time, like, I also don't think that the quarterback should get credit for the wins either. It's not a team stat, right? Like, he didn't win the Super Bowl. 53 people did, right? Was he a big piece of that? Sure. But it's like Dan Marino. He never won a Super Bowl. Well, he's not as good as Joe Montana. He won 4.
Right.
Is that actually true?
Yes.
No. Joe had a much better team around him.
So here's
Dan Marino over Joe Montana 100% of the time if I was playing.
And that's fine. I'll just win more Super Bowls then. I mean, that's the difference. And like That's the ultimate.
That's not the difference, though.
Yes, it is, because you don't.
If you put Dan Marino on, if you put Dan Marino on San Francisco,
that you do this all the time, where you'll be like, if you took Dan Marino and you put him on San Francisco, that is a ridiculous argument because it never can happen. Like, you can't take Dan Marino and you can't take Joe Montana, and you can't just take them off those teams and insert them into each other's like situations. Like, that is as unreasonable a thing to say as anything else that we have discussed here today. And like, the fact that you think it gives credence to the fact that like whether or not Dan Marino is a better or more talented player of football than Joe Montana is, you can have that opinion, but like, there's no quantifiable way to prove it.
No, sure. So what you're saying is you would take the San Francisco 49ers with Joe Montana.
I'm saying you
will win more Super Bowls.
I'll take the wins and the winning.
Right. And so what you're saying is I will take this team and win more Super Bowls than that team and win no Super Bowls. And that would be 100% accurate.
Right. And like, whether or not you agree with it, greatness is defined by whether or not you win Super Bowls in the NFL. So like, Dan Marino, if you projected out what Dan Marino's stats would be in like the modern NFL by like pass attempts and like averages, it would be insane, right? And great, but like, it didn't amount to a Super Bowl. And like, he was on a team that won every game and they didn't win the Super Bowl. Was he on that 72 Dolphins team or whatever? I don't remember.
And they did win the Super Bowl. They won 17 though.
Oh, okay, great. So like,
he lost the Super Bowl in '84, I think.
Jim Kelly was a great quarterback and he went to 4 Super Bowls and never won any of them. Like, I don't care so much that like Joe Montana may not be as tall, throw as hard, throw as well, process information, make all the right decisions. Like, it's like the Brock Purdy argument nowadays to me is that like, Brock Purdy is not a wonderful quarterback, but he is statistically the most efficient quarterback in the entire NFL and has done it for like 3 years in a row. And like, people can watch Brock Purdy and say that guy is not as good of quarterback as Joe Burrow, but okay, like, I don't care, because like, if Joe Burrow's team misses the playoff and he plays great, and Brock Purdy's team makes the playoffs and he's playing efficiently, like, Brock Purdy's team has the opportunity to win a Super Bowl and Joe Burrow's doesn't. And history will remember the fact that that player won one and that player didn't win one. And that is the only common denominator in the entirety of sports.
I agree with all of that. The only part that I disagree with, when you compare player A to player B, those kinds of things are not the end all be all. Otherwise, Michael Jordan's not the greatest. Michael Jordan is not the greatest player of all time. Then Wilt Chamberlain is with 11 rings. And I totally disagree with that.
Well, so
Chris Draper, who won 4 Stanley Cups with the Red Wings, is better than Steve Yzerman, who only won 3. I totally disagree with that.
Sure. And, I've never made the argument that, like, it's just quantity. I'm saying it's winning. And so, like, you have a really high opinion of, like, Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, and Joe Burrow. And I like all those quarterbacks.
Breeze, right?
Yeah. I like all those quarterbacks. And they're just... none of them have ever been the best version of what a quarterback was in their eras. And that's not how history will remember them, because Peyton won 1, Stafford won 1, Joe Burrow has won nothing.
2.
Peyton won 2. Oh, yeah, one with Denver.
In Denver and in
one with Denver where he did not have a right arm.
Correct. But he won 2.
Right.
So he gets to be,
and that's what matters, right? And so, like, he won 2, sure. Eli Manning won 2. you know.
So as good as Drew Brees, those two, they've got 2 wins.
So I mean, like, and that's the thing is that, like, when you boil down like what history and like history books are going to remember, you know, every tally mark that you put next to like Super Bowl MVP, you know, whatever, like those are the things that like that is the thing that like we have been shown that people will remember. So all I'm saying is what humanity or like the viewing public or however you want to say it has chosen to observe is the winning. If it was who's thrown for the most yards in a season or the most touchdowns, that would be the stuff that we would talk about more, or that we would put a higher amount of prestige on, and there would be awards for like, oh, you got the trophy for the most yards ever thrown in a season award. Here's a trophy of an arm coming forward, like letting go of a football, right? And we just don't have those kinds of things because those accolades aren't as important. So the degree by which they're not as important is debatable, but I don't think that the fact that they're not as important is debatable. So
great chat. But my food's getting cold, so I will see you next Tuesday.
I have, just so chat knows, I've begged Mike to eat before he comes on to the show. He refuses to do it. So,
well, in fairness, you're lucky I was even on the show at all today. Yeah. I've got so much stuff to do. So, but when I say you, I mean everybody is lucky that I was able to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, see you, buddy.
Yeah, see you, Mike.